Today, we're here with Zed Nelson. He's sitting right in front of me. He's a magnificent human being, and that's one of the reasons he's a great photographer. He's one of the best. Won loads of accolades, directed films, and now, to crown it all, a crescendo, winning the World Sony Award. Is that the correct
Thank you.
way of describing it?
What, crescendo? I like
No,
that word.
the word, the World Sony
Oh,
Award,
it's the Sony World Photography Award.
the best photographer in the world
Yeah,
currently.
yeah, yeah, exactly. For 1 year though, so I cease to be the best
Yeah.
at the end of next year.
So when just going back to the beginning,
Mm.
how I mean it's a kind of glib question, but how did you get into it? I mean, it's sort of what prompted you? Did you come from a creative
What you mean,
family?
photography?
I know that your
Mm.
family were kind of probably it was probably okay to be into the humanities and be
Mm.
creative, and you originally called Zick, weren't you?
True, I still am.
Indeed, and the people who've known you longest know to call you that.
Sorry, I'm laughing because your son is off camera making strange noises. He walked through a beaded curtain and now he seems to be drumming on a metal bin.
He's doing his absolute best to sabotage one of our best interviews.
No, let's get back to being serious. So what are you asking me? How I got into photography, or
Yeah,
like
I'm
the
sure
back?
you've been asked that lots,
No,
but
no, actually not at all. I haven't. But my family was sort of ramshackle. Like they put me in a van when I was 8 years old and drove us to India, and it took a year. So that wasn't what I was doing every year, but that was like one particularly odd and unusual year in my life. It was an old, diesel ambulance, and we just drove all the way there and all the way back, and it took a year. And so those sort of experiences, I don't know if they coloured me as a
yeah, I mean,
person, but I'm sure they did.
were you a visual person back then, or was that just purely
No,
kind of knowing that there was a whole world out
no,
there?
I think that's all it did. It said there's a big world out there, and some of it's not that nice. Um, so yeah, I had that, and then I was also born in East Africa in Uganda, so I think
Hence
that
the Zik.
yeah, I have an African name which is anglicized into Zed, just because it took such a lot of explanation when I was growing up. So yeah, that was it, and then I went to a super shit school in Hackney, horrible comprehensive school. So I then kind of that set me back years in a way, and when I
Mm.
left school, I had to sort of almost like rebuild myself. I mean, those were
So
the
you had a bad
battles.
experience at school.
Yeah, because now things have changed a lot. I mean, Hackney obviously has been massively gentrified, and but also schooling itself. There's now Ofsted reports, and schools are monitored. Back then, there were good schools and there were really horrible schools, and
Mm.
and if you got lucky with one, I just got unlucky with a really crap
So were
one.
your parents sort of quite political? Was it a sort of decision that they made, which it was in line with their kind of politics that you should go to a state school?
Yeah, exactly. And more than that, almost like we're not elitist, so we don't even check on what it's
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
We just put
So
you
we
there.
need to bring this school up by sending our son there. And
I don't know what they didn't even have that thinking. I think they just thought we're not. We just send him to whatever school.
are
We
you
don't
still
think
friends with those kids that you were at school with back then?
a couple, not many. I mean, I really mean it was a bad school, and so no. Although I did a lecture recently, and my very first girlfriend from that school, Dawn, age 14, was in
Oh,
the audience and came
oh,
up,
wow.
and she's a really nice person. So there were a few survivors from it, and in fact, when I published my Hackney book, the introduction, it said something like, I grew up in Hackney and I went to a school. There wasn't a blade of grass in sight. It was surrounded by a chain link fence. And, I basically just sort of dissed it.
Mm.
And I used that as the blurb of the book. And then I got this Facebook post from an old school friend. And he was like, that's bollocks. You were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. The school wasn't that bad. You're talking bollocks. And this was a public comment on Facebook. So I direct messaged him and I was like, dude, what are you on about? It was horrible. People were stabbed and the parents weren't told. It was that
Mm,
bad.
mm,
No one got any qualifications.
mm.
And then he said, it was horrible. I've been in therapy all my life. How do you think I felt as a Jewish kid? Da 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 da. And he just then sort of crumpled
Mm.
and I was like, yeah, but why did you write that then? And he's like, I don't know. So, but it was like back to the school
Yeah.
playground.
Yeah.
And another thing happened actually with another friend from school when I was posting on Facebook at the beginning of our Facebook world, when it
Mm.
was just a new thing.
Mm.
And I posted a portrait of a woman, and he wrote something like, "What a minger." And I just thought, and I deleted it and banned him from my
Oh
account.
my
But
God.
it was like my old life sort of breaking through.
Yeah.
Anyway, and even that kid who did that, he's a really nice boy.
Yeah.
But it was just people get trapped in a certain personality
Yeah.
type. And
However high your tree grew, the
Mhm.
roots were there in the poison of your past.
Well, it wasn't all like that though, because I also went, I lived in Hong Kong for 2 years growing up, and that was
Mm.
an international school,
Mm.
and it was a really good school.
So you were born with a silver spoon.
No, so I've
Yeah.
experienced
Yeah.
really good education and really shit
Yeah.
education, and
I think that's one of the reasons I always liked you, and I always wanted in another life to carve out some time to hang out, because
mm,
there are parallels, because my dad was Jewish, and my dad moved to Devon to be a pig farmer.
mm,
It was completely fish out of water stuff. He was probably depressed the whole time we were growing up. We went to like a terrible. I have been back there and given a talk, but
mm,
Tiverton Comprehensive, I don't remember stabbings, but there was a lot of having to keep your head down because
right,
you'd get beaten up and stuff. But inadvertently, I think actually it makes you more robust as a person, and
mm.
maybe gives you some soft skills. I mean, would you acknowledge that maybe it's? I mean, you do karate,
I
am I right?
did black belt in karate.
So I mean, maybe you found yourself in situations that are challenging,
Yeah,
to your physicality.
yeah, 100%. Like I think the education and the life I had certainly equipped me to go and to be able to go anywhere and talk to different types of people as well.
Yeah,
Like when I made the film The Street about gentrification, I find I can slip between
yeah,
worlds easily.
yeah,
And in fact, one of the jobs I got for the Sunday Times after I did Gun Nation, where I became kind of labeled as the gun person for about five
yeah.
years. And so any job that had guns or gangs in it, I would get for some weird reason. And they were like, "Do you want to go to a Yardie's funeral in Dalston?"
Yeah.
And I thought, well, yeah, okay. And I went there, and I was the only white person for a start, so I couldn't blend in. I'd
Mm,
taken a Leica camera, so it was discreet,
mm,
a little, old 35mm Leica, which I call my funeral camera because you can just take it. It's not ostentatious. But then, of course, I realized I was the only white person, so that was,
mm.
I wasn't going to blend
And
in.
were you documenting it? Were you sort of accepted as part of the people?
No,
So
that no one knew I was going to
it's
be
quite
there.
hostile.
They just sent me there to photograph it, and it was a thing about gangland executions in Hackney at the
Mm,
time. And so I stood on the outskirts of it thinking, this is impossible, this is a nightmare. And then I just took a deep breath and walked into the crowd. And then this enormous bloke in a leather coat down to his ankles came on. He went, "All right, Zick, what are you doing here?" And and it was someone I went to school with, so I had a great in there.
wow.
Um, Anyway, so yeah, I just had
You had
varied.
also you probably had, it was like being in that school playground where you have to sort of punch the bully on the nose, otherwise you're kind of heading for a
Yeah,
whole world of pain. It's a
yeah,
sort of a hierarchy, a pecking order, isn't it?
true.
I mean, one of the first things that really caught my eye was your series on the French Foreign Legion.
Oh yeah.
That was a brilliant series of pictures, and it was the quality as well, because it's 35 mil, but you'd stop cross
Hmm.
processing it. We're all black and white.
I mean, look, I'm going to pull you up on this cross-processing thing that you've mentioned twice. What I
I
you you
misjudged
you
you. I
might cut that
misjudged you.
out of the intro, so people
Yeah.
won't know what we're talking about if you do. But you basically accused me of using this cross. Most people won't even know what cross-processing is, but
Hmm.
it's kind of a way of boosting up the colors where you
Yeah.
you develop the film wrongly, effectively, but on purpose.
Mm.
But no, when we met, I had spent some years photographing very serious, like reportage documentary type
Mm.
work in like Somalia and Afghanistan and Angola and
Mm.
El Salvador. So when we met, I had come out of that and was desperate to kind of find my sense of humor again
Right.
and
Okay.
sort of I was starting to work for that period of time for magazines that were a bit more fun and open and gonzo and
Mm.
less serious in a way. But that was a conscious decision to to sort
No.
of find the joy again,
Yeah.
because I'd done a lot of very, very bleak
So were you a bit
projects.
burnt out then,
A
do you
bit
think?
burnt out, but more, it was hard seeing some of those things, but also it was hard working out how photography could be useful
Mm,
with those
mm.
subjects.
That's what I like about your career really, is you're a renaissance man.
Mm.
You've repeatedly kind of reinvented yourself,
Mm.
and it's a sort of kind of we've gone off on a complete tangent to the street, say for instance.
Mm.
I mean, I was astonished when you told me that you basically just rocked up on your own, and with one camera, and to produce something as accomplished as that is extraordinary.
You mean the film, the
The film,
documentary?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and like I really picked up on what you said about your easy rapport, because it's really, as much as anything else, social commentary and so on, a love story between you and the woman.
And that elderly
Yeah,
woman, Pauline.
and when I saw it, I
Mm.
thought that's Zed,
Mm.
the charmer of women, you
Well,
know.
she was 84,
But
so
she just, there was just this lovely kind of rapport that you
yeah,
had,
yeah,
that really was like a thread running through the whole film.
true,
I
true.
really enjoyed that. But it's a brilliant film, and is it still on Amazon?
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime for anyone who, you know, has got into bed with the devil and is on Amazon.
Yeah.
Um, no, and it's like, yeah, it's a feature-length documentary. I filmed it myself, did the sound. It was a 4-year sort of labor of love, focusing on one street in Hackney.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, the first day, actually, I think what you're referring to is I wasn't sure that it would be possible to make a film there, because there had been a shooting in that street. A 15-year-old girl had been shot dead in a chicken shop by two people on bicycles. So there was a kind of edge to the area. And I did wonder how I would fare with an expensive video camera wandering around on my own for 4 years. So, I mean, I didn't know it was going to take 4 years actually, but so the first day I just took a Canon C300 camera, locked it onto a tripod, stood in the middle of the street and filmed kind of nothing. I was just filming pigeons and shop fronts, and
Mm.
more just as a test to see what would happen.
Mm.
And what did happen was nobody stole the camera. I didn't get mugged. People were like, "Oh, what the fuck are you doing, mate?" But in an inquisitive way.
Yeah.
People would come out of shops and like, "What are you up to? Well, what are you doing there then?"
Mm.
And then I realized it was possible.
Mm.
So
Well, that's 90% of having a. We've both been lucky and had relatively long careers, or
mm,
they're still going. And I think 90% of it is turning up and
mm,
sort of to actually have the fortitude to sort of stick with things. And you were probably an inspiration, with Gun Nation and so on. I was
mm,
at this agency, all these other photographers were bringing out books and everything. Gun
mm,
Nation's a masterpiece, Love Me's a masterpiece. They're brilliant books. And you kind of, those, it's hard getting a book over the line, isn't it? Because
true.
you need a degree of tenacity, and
Mm,
also a willingness to collaborate as well. And so those are not necessarily things that you get into photography to be like.
mm.
You get into photography for a lifestyle. I remember you talking about IPG being, it was a sort of a gentleman's club that was very expensive. It was sort of
Right,
like,
I think we said that we were probably complaining, like all people do when they're with agencies,
yeah,
about losing a large percentage of your income to
yeah.
the agency.
But
And I remember saying to you, it's like an expensive gentleman's club,
yeah, because
which sounds a bit patriarchal now, doesn't it?
yeah,
Um, I'm just wondering if it
we had
was
Vanessa
mostly
Vanessa
men.
Winchip.
Yeah,
Uh,
Caroline Irby was joined
yeah,
as well.
um,
But there were more men than women for sure.
it was actually,
But
yeah,
I don't
quite.
think I was focusing on that in that comment. It was more about the
No,
finances.
well, I think it's interesting actually, in light of my comment about collaboration, was I had to cede control to Tara and Seamus and the people that worked at IPG
Right.
to enable me to sort of get my work out there and actually manage your life, because you get to
Mm.
a certain point, and it's tricky, isn't it, logistically, sort of. And that's why the film is
Mm.
I mean, how did you get that over the line? You had probably the makings of a film.
Mm.
I mean, at one, you can't have felt that you were going to end up having a film on Amazon at the beginning.
No, quite the opposite actually. I thought normally with photography projects, when I start them, I have a kind of quite a good idea of how they might come out. And as long as you can keep doing them and fund them, I kind of have a feeling that they're going to work. But with the film, it was the first time I was halfway through a project and I thought, this could be really shit. And also, what the fuck am I doing? It's a nightmare. It's really hard work. It's sort of, kind of not lonely exactly, but filming on your own when you're doing sound with a big heavy camera, and then you're doing radio mics and batteries are running out, and you're trying to meet someone and then interview them, but keep the focus on the camera. All of that is, I have to say, it's way harder than shooting stills.
Mm.
And at the end of a day, you're kind of really depleted. And then you kind of have this slump and you think, it's all pointless. And I also remember running the idea by my my dad and my sister, who are quite good sounding boards because they're not in the photography world, but they're clever enough to have an opinion.
Yeah.
And I'd said, look, I've been doing this film for like, a year and a half, and it's about gentrification, and I'm charting it, and in this one street. And they said, boring. And they don't speak like that normally.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean? What are you saying? And they were like, done it, been there, seen it, done that. Meaning like, how can that be interesting? And that tapped into my insecurities about the subject, because I did think, oh God, yeah, gentrification a bit dull. But honestly, the film did do really well. Much better than I would have hoped. It played in like 250 cinemas and got really good reviews in The Guardian and The Economist and all sorts of different newspapers, and was on Amazon Prime and da-da-da. So it did well, much better than it should have in a way. And it is a good film, I think, because it kind of Brexit happened during the production of it. So that was somehow woven into it.
The zeitgeist.
Yeah, and the Grenfell Tower burnt down, and one of the characters was died in the tower, which was an awful, awful moment.
Yeah.
So it brought in these much bigger political backgrounds, which were linked to gentrification in some ways.
Yeah.
And also,
and then you had that wonderful soundtrack with Mike Lee's music.
God.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Life is Sweet,
Inspired.
composed by Rachel Portman, who came to my book launch.
Was that expensive to get that?
Yeah, I mean, I asked for it. I tried to commission. I approached her agent to ask her to, write some music for the film, and he just laughed at me. He didn't even ask how much money I had, or contact her. He just snorted in derision, and he said she's won 2 Academy Awards, and she's doing the music for like, I don't know, major Hollywood films. And I was like, yeah, but you haven't asked what my budget is. And he's like, well, I don't need to. It's not going to happen. He just knew it was a documentary about gentrification.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, but I really want, like, I've used the music from Life is Sweet, from this Mike Leigh film.
You'd already used it?
I'd woven it into the film. We'd edited it all in.
What, without even getting
Without
permissions?
any permission or asking anyone.
Oh, it's so
just
great.
because I was so sure that it had to be that music.
Yeah.
So I said, well, let me license the music then, the song, the tracks. And then that began this. That was the hardest bit of the film, actually, because what I realized is that there were professional people, I can't remember what they're called, music agents or something.
Yeah.
And it's their job to negotiate those kind of deals. So trying to do it on my own proved to be very difficult. And it took months, but anyway, it worked in the end.
So let's talk about your books, and we'll lead up to your latest masterpiece. Really kind of interesting. I've just been listening to, rather than reading, Nexus, the Yuval Noah Harari's book.
Oh yeah,
about the kind of impact of AI and so on.
Really?
And this kind of, and the kind of theme that he returns to again and again and again is the idea that as human beings, in terms of our evolution as a species, from monkeys, we develop this sort of cognitive ability to believe in fictions. And I think that's sort of kind of the central conceit to your latest
illusion. Yeah, it's about, in a way, it's the story we tell ourselves in order to hide from the truth. But what I realized actually is that all my projects in some way have had that thread running through them. Gun Nation was about how the American gun industry had sold a myth of guns to the American public, even created the Wild West myth of gun ownership. So it was about how a big manufacturing industry brainwashed an entire nation into buying guns. and then blamed it on gangs, like then denied any involvement in the gun problem and called it a gang problem.
Mm.
So it was about the psychology of that. And then Love Me was about the global beauty industry.
Mm.
Um, and it unpacked this idea that they not only have made us humans utterly insecure and vain about ourselves in order to sell us products,
Mm.
but also have sold this Western beauty ideal
Mm.
all around the world
Mm.
to then be able to sell products to every nation,
Mm.
to aspire to this kind of very prescriptive view of the way we should look. So again, about psychology and capitalism and the whole that kind of connection
Yeah, I
between the
mean,
two.
the gun nation, the nation state just a set of ideas that we have about each other.
Mm,
In America, they have
mm,
this idea, a whole set of stories.
yeah.
My dad was like that. I used to say my dad's father was from Ukraine and my
Mm,
dad's mother was from Romania, and I'd say to him, "Well, why don't we go back to Ukraine?" And he'd go, "Why would I want to go there? They still
mm,
hate Jews."
uh,
And I'd say I'd say, but it's and he'd go, "I'm an American,"
mm,
and he bought into this idea, this sort of narrative. He was so proud of being an American, and that's
mm,
how he saw himself.
yeah.
And that whole kind of the kind of connection with guns is part of what it is to be American. It's absolutely sort of fundamental, isn't it? And
Yeah.
that's why you had a lot of kickback, didn't you? Because you personally you were on a television in America, and then you came back to all these voicemail. Maybe you don't want to
Yeah, I
rake
got
over this
yeah,
ground.
no, I mean, yeah, I got death threats, but that was really no, it wasn't reassuring exactly, but it was interesting to know that photography could um have enough of an effect on people that you'd end up on national TV and then you get death threats as a result of it, and all those sort of things that came
Mm,
out of it
mm,
was not good at all, but it was just interesting to know that photography could still have a strong enough voice
yeah,
to
absolutely.
make anything happen.
Yeah, I thought the Love Me, the great thing about that was that it wasn't just Western in scope.
Mm.
So you focused on people in Iran having nose jobs and so on.
Yeah, I mean, it included 18 different countries. And people used to ring me up and go, "Oh, I've got an idea," because they knew I was doing the book. "Oh, you should do this thing about the Burmese, and they will have rings around their neck, and it stretches their neck, and it's a beauty ritual." And I would say, no, 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 no. This project is not about a kind of Nat Geo version of celebrating the diversity of beauty around the world. It's the opposite.
Mm,
It's saying that all of those traditional or unique things are being erased. And actually, the beauty industry have captured the attention of the world. And now they're saying, no, you have to be pale skinned, light haired, straight hair, small nosed, westernized, and if you haven't got these traits, you need to be having plastic surgery or buying our products to help achieve
mm,
that look.
mm.
So it was about the homogenization of
And
humans.
the whole, I mean, it's really was very prescient, given the nature of the sort of levels of narcissism
Mm,
that we have now.
mm,
In terms of selfie culture and so on.
true, true. Yeah, it's only got kind of worse.
Yeah, I mean the kind of ubiquity of people doing quite invasive operations now. It's sort of
Mm,
seen. It's the same thing with tattoos. I mean, it's sort of it's something that's occurred to me with tattoos is you never. It used to be kind of something that was kind of really quite radically
mm.
like I've got a tattoo on my shoulder, and it felt like quite a really
You're a
betrayal
rebel.
a betrayal of my parents.
Oh
And yeah, I
yeah,
did it at 19, and now it's like I say to my kids, I say to Fred, if you want to be a rebel, if you want to do
yeah.
something that's genuinely countercultural, that's progressive and different, it's basically don't have any tattoos.
True, yeah. Yeah, it's like which is the Marlon Brando film, is it the Wild Bunch or the Wild Ones, where there's
Yeah.
like they're motorcyclists and they come into town and they're like the rebels. But now it'd be like if a motorcyclist came into town with no tattoos, all the tattoos hipsters would be like, "Oh my God, there's someone with no tattoos in town."
Mm,
Um, but yeah, you're right. It's just I don't think that's the same as plastic surgery. I think that is
mm.
just a,
No, I
a
mean that
trend. I
was a
mean,
bit of a side.
plastic surgery is deeply embedded in like a fear of aging, which has also been sold to us as a
Mm,
pathologized idea
mm,
that aging is a disease, it's not a natural arc,
mm,
and you should fear it and be embarrassed by it, and therefore buy our products
mm.
in order to hide it as long as possible.
Yeah.
And so that's something very insidious. And if you're an African in Senegal and you've grown up in a colonial view of what is beautiful, and that happens to be a fair-skinned woman with straight hair, and you're spending your savings on skin lightening creams and all sorts of other things,
Mm.
that's also a very toxic part of culture that's
Mm.
happened.
Mm.
And that's becoming, more and more prevalent.
Yeah, and and then also a very modest little book, but we touched on it earlier.
Mm.
But your Hackney book,
Yeah.
and I published by Hoxton Mini Press, and
Mm.
my single dad the same.
Right.
I think it's probably the whole notion of Hoxton Mini Press, I think, started on the basis that it was kind of stuff around the East End, and I think yours is kind of the ultimate Hoxton Mini Press kind
Mm.
of box ticking for their
Mm.
kind of original ethos. I mean, my single dad was kind of going off on kind of wild
Right.
tangent, really, but it's a lovely little book, and also I think you like with the street. I think you have the authority, learning a little bit more about
Mm.
your background, to kind of tackle these.
Yeah,
The
true. I
rest.
mean, that book, that was a really nice project because it came on the back of, I'd finished Love Me and I didn't want to travel anymore. I didn't want to go on any more airplanes for a while. I was kind of sick of the whole beauty industry. It
Mm.
all felt a bit toxic, because when you do a project, it kind of gets under your skin. You can't, you're immersed in
Yeah,
that world. And so I didn't want to be immersed in that world anymore. I wanted like to be cleansed of it in a
yeah,
way. And so I didn't know what to do. And I thought, well, okay, I don't want this traveling and doing that. So I just thought I'll do a local project. Hackney was in this kind of strange, changing
yeah.
metamorphosis. And I thought I'll document that,
Mm.
but really just like wander the streets and be
Yeah.
studenty and little sort of flanner wandering
It's
around with a camera.
it's really interesting because it's something that Hackney's probably got more photographers per square
Mm,
mile than anywhere in
right.
certainly in the
Yeah.
UK, and it's kind of a seductive thing. These people think that they can make a book by just
Mm,
wandering around and everything, but it's a testament to your skill and observational capacity that you kind of made that book, because it's lovely. I mean, I'm like you. I lived in
mm,
Hackney for 20 years. I moved there when, well, I remember when I first bought my house, my friend said, what are you doing? You're going to get robbed. And on
mm.
the first morning, they were putting the post through the letterbox, and I jumped down the stairs in one bound with a baseball bat to protect Fred, protect my kids and
Did you
everything.
really?
Yeah, but I mean, I did have the bumpers nicked off my Golf
Right.
GTI right outside my house, and
Really?
and occasionally things happen. Bikes got nicked and
Right.
stuff. But I love Hackney, and it's a lovely little book.
Did the
And
postman get used to you flailing in your underpants with a baseball bat by week 2?
yeah, no, you get used to it.
Right.
It's funny, now I live in the country. I don't even lock my car or anything,
Really.
and it's ridiculous.
Sure,
I've
it's
gone to the
way more dangerous in the country. That's where you hear all the stories about people being tied up and tortured and murdered.
I think
Always happens in the country.
it's more of a slow death in the country,
Right.
of kind of boredom,
Right.
tedium, a kind of morose,
Alcoholism.
yeah, sort of mental health issues.
Right. Joining UKIP.
Yeah, joining Reform. This channel does not. We're not a political channel, so
Really?
we're not really coming down on.
Right.
I'm not going to be drawn into that. We did a video about Hillary Clinton.
Right.
It's a bit like we're going to lose some fans because we've sort of mentioned Gun Nation, and we haven't been
Right.
positive about guns.
You're
I'm
going to lose
sure.
your gun owning, your lobby group.
Yeah, well, we got a lot of people that joined the channel because I had a bad experience photographing Hillary Clinton, which I
Ah.
regaled in
Oh,
the video.
really?
And
So you got the anti-Clinton brigade.
we've got the video has currently over 1 million views,
Really?
and there's a lot of MAGA stuff there.
Right.
But we're really keen to say we're not a political channel. It's about kind of photography
Right.
first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it's just there's no end of hurt in going down that road, really. So it's really about creativity and stuff.
Right.
But
Who was the woman that filmed the Nazi rallies? Was it
Lenny
Leni
Riefenstahl.
Riefenstahl?
Yeah,
She probably said the same thing
she
when
did.
Goering used her films
Yeah,
to bolster the Nazi movement.
yeah.
She probably said, "Well, I'm just an artist,
Well,
photographing a rally."
now that she's dead, as a little
Right.
sidebar, she's totally was guilty, And
Yeah.
I read recently that there was an interesting sort of little piece that I read that basically she was banged to write, and
Right.
she was a brilliant actress,
Yeah.
and she would get really angry and create a huge scene whenever anyone tried to sort of tackle her on some of
Mm.
the
Oh.
finer details and diversion tactics. But she was like
Deep down, she was a raving Nazi.
she was Hitler's right hand
Really.
girl. She was
Mm.
she was head of content for the
Right.
Nazi party,
Yeah. Yeah.
and she was very adept
Wow.
and had a great eye and everything. And
So in a way, though, your Hillary Clinton has been
it
hijacked
has been
by
hijacked.
in a
Well,
similar.
we did say, didn't we, that we were very keen for it not to be.
Yeah.
This is a channel. It's just
Yeah.
a son finding out what his father did in the world of photography.
But in a way, my Hackney book, I realised that I mean, not quite on the same level as supporting the Nazi Party, but it became co-opted by the forces of gentrification, I think.
Yeah,
So it was a little bit about gentrification, and it was about how these two worlds collide, or not collide, but cohabit in the same space.
yeah,
Wealth and the disadvantaged living in the same area, and
yeah,
what that really means and what it looks like. But the book wasn't that political, but the film became more political. So the book was more like a poem, a love poem to an area that was sort of shitty and scrappy, where
mm,
I grew up, that I wanted to get away from. But now, we want to go out and hang out in a place.
yeah,
So it was a kind of reflection on that. But my point is that afterwards, I realized that the book itself, I think, hipsters were buying it and sending it to their parents, or parents were buying it and sending it to their hipster
yeah.
kids, and then I saw,
I bought a few copies and
did you?
sent them to people.
Some of the actual people in the pictures had been made into
Mm,
animated figures, very hipster, bright colors,
mm.
and used online. And then I got a call from a graffiti artist, and she's like, "I want to use one of the pictures for a big mural in Hackney," and
Wow.
it was all very hipster.
Mm,
And then slowly, it wasn't really a critique of gentrification. It was like part of it.
yeah,
I wandered anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, this shit happens like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's those two elements sort of coming together. A
Yeah.
bit like these two elements coming together. I'm gonna bring this to a close.
Mm.
How can people sort of see your work? What's your website and your social media handles, and what are you
Ooh.
working on?
Right. Well, shall I just very briefly tell you about the project that
Yeah,
I've just
absolutely.
finished?
Yeah,
'Cause in fact, we haven't talked about that
yeah.
at all.
We should talk about that.
We should. But
We'll put a link. We'll put a link underneath where
yeah,
people can buy the book and so on.
yeah. The book literally got published last week. It's called The Anthropocene Illusion, and it took 6 years to shoot. And, so basically, it's about how we humans have divorced ourselves from nature, how we've kind of broken our bonds with the natural world, and have largely, caused massive destruction to it. And at that exact moment in our kind of evolutionary arc, we've also chosen now to kind of create ever more artificial, stage managed, choreographed, curated versions of nature to retreat into, partly to hide from what we're doing, create a kind of mask, a smoke screen from what we've done, and also to satisfy a kind of craving, a craving that, like an enduring craving that we have for a connection to nature. So we destroy the real thing and we replace it with a kind of spectacle of,
And ersatz.
you could say that. Yeah, I've always wondered what that meant, and I
It just means
still,
fake, I think.
does it?
Yeah.
Does it? And so the project looks at that phenomenon, and so
Mm,
it's shot in 14 countries, um, and it has everything in it from the more obvious, theme parks, might be like a version of Africa, but in Walt Disney's Florida,
mm,
Disneyland, right through to, actual African national parks with animals and Maasai warriors.
mm,
But it's so stage managed now that it's almost become like theatre,
mm,
a theatre that's offered to reassure us humans that there's still animals out there, that there's still the
mm,
wildness is still there.
mm,
But those little pockets of wildness are in more and more kind of
mm.
concentrated.
What was the genesis of that idea?
Just a growing kind of concern about the environment, and a feeling of like, what can I do and say about it that's helpful or interesting? But also, I did go to Norway like 10 years ago, and I had my Love Me exhibition in Norway,
Mm,
in the far north of Norway in the Arctic, um, in a place called Tromsø
mm,
near the coast. And I had an afternoon off, and my girlfriend at the time, I said, should we go to this place called Polaria? And she's like, no, fuck that. I'm not going there. It's horrible. I hate things like that. And it was a kind of not like an ocean experience place. It's supposed to be educational,
mm,
but there was live animals there. I think she knew that. And I thought, well, I want to go and see it. And then, sure enough, there were two bearded seals, big, big Arctic seals, but
mm,
indoors on a kind of fiberglass rock polar landscape, all made of plastic and metal, next to a kind of swimming pool that's supposed to look like the sea,
mm,
under horrible fluorescent sodium lighting.
mm.
That kind of echoey acoustic you get when
Yeah,
you remember from school when you were forced to go to swimming lessons.
yeah.
And I looked at it and I just thought, how can a animal live in these conditions, especially now here in the Arctic when it's near the ocean?
Mm,
Like we're literally in its natural habitat, and it really was weird. And then I engaged in this kind of letter writing campaign, asking and demanding to know, why they felt it was okay to keep an animal indoors and so near the sea and all these different things.
mm,
But that really maybe focused my attention on it
mm,
in that way. Maybe
mm.
it wasn't for a few years after that I
Oh, that's
actually
so
started work.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it might have been the kernel of it. And so and the book is called The Anthropocene Illusion because some people know what the Anthropocene is and others have no idea. But
Mm,
it's basically a geological term. Well, it's a name of an epoch.
mm,
So as humans, we live in epochs. The
mm,
dinosaurs lived in one epoch.
mm,
Um, we now live in the Holocene epoch.
mm,
And geologists today are saying that we should rename, we should start a new epoch now called the Anthropocene, which is like the age of human, because in the last sort of say 100 200 years since the industrial revolution we've created such a sort of shattering impact on the planet
mm,
that will be measurable in the kind of sedimentary layer of rock
mm.
being created under our feet.
All that plastic and
Yeah, there'll be a carpet of
fiberglass.
plastic, a carpet of chicken bones, a
Mm,
carpet of concrete, the nuclear isotopes
mm,
from the 1950s testing,
mm.
fallout of burning of fossil fuels. There'll be this kind of layer
Sedimentary layer.
of kind of that will tell this story of who we are
Mm,
today. And so the scientists are saying we should rename the this current epoch the Anthropocene. And the illusion in the title means the illusion we're creating, knowingly or unknowingly,
mm,
to deny the fact of the way we're living.
mm.
Yeah.
No, fantastic.
God, that wasn't. Yeah, that was not a bad explanation for a complicated
No, it's.
thing.
I totally get
You
it. I
can
mean,
probably edit that out, but
and it's done. It is a brilliant book. I mean, it's done in with your. You've got a great eye. You're a master of the medium, and so the pictures you can sit with them. They belong on gallery walls.
mm,
They're not kind of simple. They have a degree of depth and complexity, which is kind of rewarding. So you can.
mm.
It's one of like with all your books, you can sort of just go back to it. In fact, your picture in the Love Me that won the World Press Photo,
Oh yeah.
I was a judge that year in the
Oh,
competition. So
really?
yeah, I was really pleased to see it do well in the
You're not
portrait
suggesting
category.
there was any insider
No,
dealing, I
absolutely.
hope.
I actually was chuffed to learn after the judging
Right.
process that it was your
Oh, because
picture.
it is anonymous, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
as I say, I'm a fan. I've always been a fan. So I was
Yeah,
saying to
thanks.
Fred, we haven't even talked about your celebrity portraiture.
Oh,
Dolly
no.
Parton. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of any
That was
kind
an
of
extraordinary
just to
one.
finish off with any kind of prurient things that we can sort of clip and put to are you going to sort of diss Noel Gallagher or somebody that you photographed?
No, and that's your job now, isn't it? No, I photographed Oasis actually, and had to steel myself ready, thinking they were going to be rude, and had all these stories about
Mm,
them, but they were kind of hungover and quite, you know,
mm,
passive really when I
mm,
did it.
mm.
Dolly Parton was a brilliant
Because we'd
experience.
always get in the Taylor Wessing, didn't we, or the equivalent
Yes.
every year?
I
And
never had celebrity images in that though.
no, I think
No.
Dolly might have got in, maybe.
Oh, you might be right.
Yeah.
Maybe she did. Yeah, she was.
Mm,
True, true. But mostly they weren't the
yeah.
celebrities.
Yeah.
Well,
No, but
you're
that it was just another string to your bow.
Well, I mean, yeah, because there, I think the world in the photography world, it seems to be separated into two groups. There are the commercial people, and they kind of maybe started out as documentary photographers, but then they kind of got commercial work,
Mm,
and then followed the money and just swam towards the light.
mm,
And they're all a bit bitter and like they're like, oh, I wish I did interesting work, and oh, I really miss doing that, and I feel a bit like I don't do anything important. So
mm,
you got that, and then you got the bitter, twisted documentary photographers who they're not earning any money, and it's a nightmare, and they're like, and they're bitter and twisted about that. And then so I've tried to not quite join either camp, but
mm,
do enough work that funds me making more
mm.
interesting work,
Yeah,
being able to pursue personal projects long
yeah.
term. And, so I've always worked hard to generate enough income to be able to do that.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of worked,
I
it's
think
not been easy, but
that's something that I've tried to do as well. I think
mm,
it's really, I
yeah,
think it's
yeah.
crucial that you can easily. I mean, I sort of got lost. I think when in the sort of last days of Rome at
Mm,
IPG, I was doing all these advertising campaigns,
right.
and it was just, I won't name them, but you're just providing jigsaw puzzle
Right.
pieces to something that's going to be comped together for an advert, and it's very well paid, and you have pre-production meetings and stuff. But it's kind of ultimately, I did too much of that, and
Mm.
I think you have to get that balance right, ideally. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I remember at IPG, I did 2 years I started getting corporate work for a period in like black and white reportage, 35 mil, sort of documentary style,
mm,
but of businessmen and women at in corporate environments, and it was like, okay, I mean, this isn't bad. It's
mm,
actually kind of easy to do, and I'm not even selling my soul that much.
mm,
And I did it for 2 years, and it was actually when I was trying to buy a place to live.
mm,
I needed money for a deposit, and so it really served that function well. But I did after the 2 years. I remember thinking, God, I haven't taken any interesting pictures for two
mm,
years.
mm,
It was a bit of a shock, and that was my crossroads,
mm,
where I either had to stop swimming towards that beckoning light,
mm.
or and go back to what really inspired me as a photographer.
Yeah.
And I remember that very, very clearly and consciously at the time.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess it is a
It's also
matter of priority.
it's worth standing back, because sometimes, even if you just look for immediate remuneration,
Mm,
that's fine. But actually, what I found, editorial shoots that were kind of really not for the money but for
mm,
the access, they can generate revenue 20 years later, because suddenly they were done with authenticity,
mm.
and there's more integrity to the pictures, and the pictures actually were a moment in time.
True.
Even somebody like, I shot Robin Williams, and then 20 years later it's used for the cover of his book, which was
Mm,
published posthumously. And he didn't even like the picture when I took it,
mm,
but it generated a bit of revenue 20 years later. So I do think it's important to do things for the right reasons, because life is
mm.
short, and you really have to be able to justify how you spend it.
True.
I think that's a good point to finish.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
So, Zed, thanks for agreeing to this,
My
and
pleasure.
it's been fun.
Definitely.
All right.